I think you get the drift there. I'm going to switch the audio back over here. That is a new intro video that we're going to be using on our uploads on our YouTube channel for TUNZ Records and IndieTunesRecords.com. This is another episode of the Indie Show where we discuss a lot of things, independent music and, a whole bunch of other stuff in between. And tonight we're going to talk about, that thing called luck. We're going to continue to talk about that. That's going to be part of the theme tonight. But we're gonna expand those thoughts, and we're going to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of the music business, and we'll kind of tie that all in there somewhere. And the guy that's really good at doing this with me, I love him. I think I'm going to change. Like, he needs to have an on-screen name, maybe Jawbone or something like that. Anyways, we got Sean McKenna from the East Coast tonight. Mr. Sean McKenna from the podcast Barstools and Band Talk Rin Shots with Sean. Hey, buddy.
Hello, howdy ho, howdy ho.
I
the kids
love
are
it.
all shaking in the USA.
Yeah, when are you gonna send me that? You gotta
will.
quit. You're such a fucking tease.
I know. I keep forgetting. I'll get to it.
You're teasing me with that. We got a new single that we're going to be releasing soon by a band that turns 50 next year.
Uh-oh.
That band is these guys. Hang on a second. Can I get that straight? There we go. Helix.
Well,
Helix.
That's what I just put up. Not the
That's
same
right.
song, but
they turn 50 next year, and that is a song called "It's Too Late."
Off the first album.
Yeah, and this is off the second album.
Second album.
White Lace and Black Leather. It's Too Late, and that track was on a major motion picture. Do you know which one it was?
I do not.
Okay, I'll give you the star of the show was Lou Gossett Jr.
Oh, the Iron Eagle.
Iron Eagle. That's right.
There you go.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was the theme track for the soundtrack.
Well, and I bet you if we played the game, we could get back to Kevin Bacon in between 2 and 4 steps.
It's Too Late. It's a great song, man. It's a great song. We're going to be putting that out on a single. We're going to be using some old artwork. We're going to be releasing that album digitally throughout the year, and then finally a full release of the album, the second studio album by Helix on their own label called H&S Records. Before they got signed to a major record deal, they had their own record label.
Very smart.
So they were an indie band before they were a mainstream band. And now they're an indie band. Finishing up their career as an indie band.
There you go. Full circle. Full circle, we might say.
Well, and the cool thing about being indie is that you get to call the shots.
A lot of people, I watched the Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Okay.
And it was interesting because it kind of, and it was, I guess we'll call it like, there was a creative artistic integrity kind of put in there to kind of fill some gaps in what people didn't understand or remember. However, at the end of her career, when she started kind of fading a little bit, Clive Davis was, basically, what have you done for me lately type thing. And, she was, they gave stats. She was the number one selling female of all time. She had the most awards of all time. And she went through what everybody else goes through. When she wasn't at that level, it was do something for me. And it ended up being kind of her downfall.
It's interesting. Here's a band that, going back to Helix, that sold so many records over the years. We got like 2 platinum albums and 3 golds. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a pretty decent resume against other artists who've actually been voted into Canada's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, dare I say,
Helix is
Um,
still not a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for Canada. Did you know that?
I did, but who cares? They're the
They're
rock
the
and roll.
only Canadian band that ever toured coast to coast on the bar circuit,
Yep.
before they got signed to a major deal.
Helix does not need to be in any Hall of Fame to prove their worth.
But they paid their dues, and I believe that they deserve that honor.
Uh,
I think they deserve a maple leaf on the Walk of Fame.
sure, I don't disagree. However, it doesn't define their career whether it happens or not. I
No,
hope it
no,
does.
no, but I think it should happen. I think it should happen. It's a way for them to be recognized. You look at other bands, other Canadian bands that didn't sell as well. Lee Aaron, for example.
Right.
Okay, she's made the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ahead of Helix. They've sold more units ever than Lee Aaron has ever sold. They've got more records that went gold, and some that were like huge sellers on their singles, especially over in Europe.
I touched on this last week, though. I
Yeah.
knew a friend of mine was on the judging panel for the Factor Grant process a number of years ago, and he
That's is.
said,
Are we talking about the ugly now? The ugly part of the
"Well,
business?
we can jump in wherever, but
Well,
point
this might be
is,
part of it.
a lot of stuff he was just like, I can't believe this is happening right now. I can't believe that this act that should be getting a grant is not going to because of the problem is it's kind of like hockey tryouts, right? People are looking for that prototypical what's a band look like that should go in, and they think that there's this chart, and it's like they did this, they did this, they did this, they did this, therefore they're in. There's still an awful lot of, hey, I'll use the word politics, you know, um,
Yeah.
and that's just unfortunately the way the world works.
I have to tell you, we have two of the most lame governments in the world when it comes to supporting the arts and supporting music. I mean, they say they do, right? But there's so much more that could be done because there are so many great artists and undiscovered talent in Canada. It's crazy.
They, they, I'm not a guy that talks politics because I really don't care other than the fact that why is it? I had a post today about volunteers. I happened to be in a place where they had this beautiful wall highlighting volunteers, and my post was basically, why is it when Joe Q average is an awesome volunteer, they get some little rinky dink plaque in some place that's never seen, but a politician gets a building in your street named after them? That to me is just, you know,
Yeah, it's one of those things in the world that needs to be set right. I mean, and you know, I just look at what the way that our government and the U.S. government has handled even things like streaming royalties,
yeah.
right? I mean, Congress has weighed in. They've talked to the industry, but there's still really no changes on the horizon for the artists out there that are having their music sold on the digital market.
But you look back, do you remember when uh, the Washington wives were trying to get the PMRC was trying to get all the labels on?
Yep.
And they figured, you know what? They would call two people to the mat who were the worst offenders. So they called Frank Zappa and Dee Snider, and both Frank and Dee went in and just slayed them. And they thought they were going to get two stupid musicians. Part of the reason why they don't get stupid musicians in anymore and talk to associations is because they're terrified that musicians are smart. So what they do is they talk to associations that represent musicians who are typically funded by government. And anyway,
Yeah, and associations are not necessarily like the thing is that I think it's really important that if you're going to have and I don't even want to call it an industry, right? There's people that don't even like that word.
right?
There's people that go, I don't like the word industry, and I think that came out on one of your posts.
It did. And well, let's qualify that. I don't know if he's watching. My
should I
guess is
should
he
I, should
probably
I
doesn't.
throw that post up on the screen so people can
Absolutely,
see
go
it?
ahead. Because here's the funny
Okay.
thing that
Well, you go
individual,
there and I'll do that.
so that individual who is a friend of mine, um, has some, I would say, legitimate gripes with the business, but it's the local business. Some things happen to him that he doesn't like. So a lot of what he bases his opinions on are local level things. So I interviewed a guy from Toronto the other night who wound up on the CBC, and the whole thing was about basically the music industry being horrible to promote. He said London, Ontario was a great place to do metal shows. Anyway, long story short, we came to the conclusion that cities don't know how to push stuff. They just don't know how to do it.
There, here, it's right here. I'm going to share this right now on the screen. Um, I like this because it was
Like, shout out to my.
oh, we lost you there, Sean. What happened there, man?
There I
What
am.
happened there? What happened? That
I
was
had the mouse wasn't running around the wheel quick enough.
that was trippy. Something went really trippy there. Hang on a second.
As soon as I said a shout out to my buddy Carl Anderson, I got cut. I don't know if that's a.
So I'm going to put this up there and then I'm going to read it. It says the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side. Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great post. Obviously was he a musician?
No, I think he was a writer, if I'm not mistaken.
Very, very interesting take on that, though, right? I mean, a cruel and shallow, a cruel and shallow money trench. I mean, the cruel part of it in the mainstream business is there's not that many people who truly make it.
Well, but that's life, isn't it? Like everybody has this fallacy that you become a lawyer and you're going to become a multimillionaire, or you become an accountant, you're going to be a multimillionaire. There is a perception that a real job leads to that, but I liken it to this: somebody's going to make it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's how you measure things like success. So, I mean, we've been talking about this thing about luck and does it play any role in success? Does the good, bad, and the ugly play a role in success? Well, probably
Every
in
day.
there somewhere. I mean, every day there's something in there, and I don't know. I just look at the value that some people that are in charge of whatever the social consciousness of the planet is like they've lost touch with the fact that music is a universal language and it should be supported at every level.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I tell this story about interviewing Russell Javers, who used to play with Billy Joel, and he had this line that was basically, "As soon as the chips are down, arts are the first thing that gets cut in every sort of way." And out here in Halifax, they've got a program where a portion of tax dollars that are paid to education go to the arts, and it's I have an interview that's going to be going up very soon with the lady that's spearheading it, and some kids can get free instruments, some kids can get free strings. It's great.
You see that we got Brent the Doctor the Dorner in the house tonight,
Uh-oh,
and
look
he
out.
says 4 gold LPs.
Look at that. I don't know if you see that, but look at
The
that. Look at
kids are
that.
all
Where is he?
shaking.
Look at that cutie
House
right
on
there.
fire.
Look at this. I'm trying to look at that cute
Hang on
man
a
right
second. I'm
there.
gonna go. Hang on. I'm gonna make it bigger. There we go. Who is that guy?
That's the handsome Brent Dorner. Come
I
on.
know. Look at the dude. Look at
I
him.
tell you, I will find a picture. I tried to get my hair in high school graduation like Brent's, and it actually looked pretty cool.
I mean, those guys between them all, they all grew. They could all grow a decent head of hair.
Sure.
And the interesting thing about it is they all still have their hair.
Well, and you know what? Um, that's Eeks, right? He says. It's really funny. Somebody had mentioned that to me tonight. Do you dye your hair? Of course I don't dye my hair. Are you kidding me?
Hair club for men, he
No,
says.
nope, not hair club for men yet, but
Oh man. Well, listen, when we're talking about this business about the good, bad, and the ugly, when it comes to the music business, um, what we're trying to do, and this becomes, I mean, somewhat your and my sort of soft sell to the public about what we're doing at Indie Tunes Records and what we're trying to make it become over time that it could be a platform for everything independent music.
Yep.
And it would be a one-stop shop where it's run by artists for artists, independent artists for independent artists. And the idea of that is to find the best payout for every artist that's part of that platform.
Yeah, and I mean, it's come up a lot. The whole, everybody's talking about streams, and I think that you know, in this day and age, you got to get off the whole thing about streams are going to make you money. I mean, it's unfortunately not going to happen. But there's other ways, and actually, Carl, that's been weighing in. So Carl and I have been friends forever. 20 some odd years. Carl is a drummer, but he's also a promoter. He's also a manager.
He
Um,
says, "Do I source licensing for artists?" Sean, do I source licensing for artists?
does he? Honest to God, if the Maple Leafs hired Ken for their analytics department, they might win a round in the playoffs beyond two. Carl, speaking
Hey,
directly
hey,
to
if
you, my
Matthews
friend.
keeps playing the way that he's playing, that's all I'm going to say.
Oh my God, here we go. I had a thing the other day. I had the
Two
first.
hat tricks in the first two games. Come on, who gets that?
Yeah, whatever. He'll choke it. But I had the parade route after the first day on a map of downtown Toronto. So anyway, uh, Carl and I are going to have a chat because he's got some artists that he's introduced me to that he's trying to get going and what have you. But part of the reason why I kind of jumped on to work with Ken is I don't understand the analytics. To be honest with you, it doesn't super excite me. Ken does.
He
Um,
doesn't listen. Okay, so aside from the analytics, do you understand the licensing process?
I not as well as you, but I do. Yes.
Right. So there's a whole licensing process, and that's the question that Carl's asking. Do you source licensing for artists? Well, sourcing licensing for artists is about, first of all, making sure all their music is registered in all the right places. They've got ISWC codes for their published works. And Brent will tell you all about this. Brent's a believer in all this stuff, and so am I. And then your ISRC codes, which are a unique code to your music, which is embedded in your final tracks, and they better be only released by one party and one party only to ensure the correct track gets released and to make sure that it's properly meta tagged with the right metadata and, of course, the correct ISRC information.
So the answer is yes, Carol.
I mean, it's a very, it's a complicated process to try and get artists their royalties for all of the music that's owned to them. Do we seek other kinds of licensing? Yes. All of our artists, we get them to sign up with Connect Music Canada. Do you know what Connect Music does?
Sort of.
Well, one of the things they can do is license your music for distribution.
Okay.
Right. So right now we have a couple of our artists who their music is licensed through Connect, and their music is sourced from podcasts who actually pay Connect licensing fees to be able to stream their music on their podcasts. So that might be that low level music that plays in the background in
Yep.
some of the podcasts, or it might even be used as a theme song every time the podcast airs.
So I have a friend in Phoenix. His name's Chris Catero, bass player. He's been around for a long time. He's got a
Mm,
sync licensing deal. And so what he does is he just creates and creates and creates and creates. And he works with all kinds of different musicians. He creates it, he publishes it, and every so often he'll get a note that says, "Hey, your song's been picked up by this, or your song's been picked up by that."
right,
And because he has it set up properly,
right.
Chris likens it to Christmas. He'll get an email saying, "Hey, you've been picked up," and whatever. Had he not gone through the process that you're talking about, it might be out there in the netherworld, and Chris might not be getting paid for it, and he might not even know.
Well, and those go into what they call the black box royalties. So there is billions of dollars right now sitting in black box royalties, unclaimed royalties by artists because the recorded works were not appropriately meta tag. They didn't have the right metadata in them. They didn't have the right information that allowed them to track that music back to an owner, right? And the owner is the owner of the masters. So who should own the masters? Who should own the
The
master
artist.
recordings?
The artist.
Right. The artist should own the master recordings 100%. And there should be agreement among the artists, if they're a band, who in fact is taking primary ownership of the tracks, right? Now that becomes a dicey thing, because if it becomes ownership of one particular person, something happens to them, that could go to their estate.
Well, look what happened with the Beatles catalog, right?
Right. Right. So the thing is to be really, really certain, if you're going to do something like that, the best thing for a band to do, form a corporation.
Well, we're
Because
getting in the weeds here now.
because when you have a corporation as a band, right, you now all share liability equally, and you share all of the benefits of being that artist if you incorporate. Now, letters of incorporation can include a lot of things, because we know how it went with Kiss, right?
Yep, 100%.
Right, and down the road, the original artists that were in the band lost their shares.
Well, they didn't lose their shares; they sold their shares. They sold their makeup. They sold. So here's a great story. So Peter Criss leaves Kiss in 1980. Um, and Branville could tell us about this. And some would say he left, and some
Well,
would say he
we're
was
going to
fired.
talk about it with Michael next time he's on the show. So it's a good thing we're airing this right now.
Awesome. But Peter Criss kept his 25% percentage. Didn't give it up. So when Eric Carr came in, Eric Carr was a hired gun, and he was paid a salary and whatever. Eventually, Peter decided that, hey, now's a good time to sell. It's like a house. It's never going to be any better than now.
That's right.
He sold,
Appreciated value.
yeah, he sold his percentage back. He got whatever he got without foreseeing, and he probably did it when Kiss was kind of doing this, and then he sold, and all of a sudden Kiss is going like this, and he doesn't get any more money off what they do.
No, and I mean, the thing is that it's like, with something, a band like that, it could be like riding the stock market,
No question. And I mean,
you
you
know?
know, a lot of guys, and Carl has a point. This is the important stuff, and it is the important stuff because
Yep.
um, so few,
We got
especially
another
when you're
comment here we want to share too.
sure, but especially when people are young, they know it all. And now with YouTube, they can find all this stuff out and they won't listen. But I've always been a believer in find somebody that's done something correctly and ask them how they did it, as opposed to trying to do it yourself. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, Brandon says, I'm recording and mastering my own stuff. How do I embed or even create my own ISRC codes? Well, that's a really good question. Um, it's it's secret sauce, actually.
Yeah,
No, it's not. It's not secret sauce. And the fact, if you're an artist and you're not able to do the research and don't have the time to do all this, record labels like TUNZ Records exist to serve you in that regard, to make sure that your music is protected, to make sure it's properly registered with all the licensing bodies, to make sure it's connected to all the royalties rights collection societies, so that you're entitled to every benefit your song has to offer, and that we set you up so that your music can be licensed to be used, for example. And now here's something that's interesting. Some companies that supply music for restaurants, other places, right, where they're playing playlists, they source that music, they license that music.
yep, 100%.
So, right. So if our artist music ends up on one of those licenses, every time that song gets played in some of those places, they're earning royalties on
Well, and that's so important. And one of the things, usually Ken does the Carney Huckster sales pitch,
it.
um,
The
but I'm going to do
Carney
it right
Huckster
now
sales
because
pitch.
everybody
The
knows.
closer.
That's right. But everybody knows record companies of yore don't exist anymore for the most part. There's a couple of them, but things are done differently now. And what Ken's been talking about doing and what we've been talking about doing is just having different offerings for artists. And this certainly could be one of them. Because a lot of people that I talk to, some of them are in the know, a lot of them aren't, and you know, they wind up shooting themselves in the foot, unfortunately.
Well, we're going to have an ask for some of our artists. Definitely new artists coming on board. We're going to have an ask.
Mhm.
Um, we don't we would like to think that the artists that are on board with us appreciate what we're offering them currently, where we're taking off the backside of their music, but there's nothing upfront in terms of investment.
That would be a contingency based situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's an opportunity for us to think about. And this isn't just an investment in your music, this is an investment in a whole new way of managing independent music. Think about it. You can get in on the ground level of something that could be a really great tsunami.
Yeah, and I mean one of the things, we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks about building the whole, community aspect of things, and um, there's there's different things involved and different things have to happen. Um, but one of those things is finding the right people that buy into what you're doing.
Yeah. So Brandon, I'm gonna answer your question. I mean, the best way to help someone like yourself, if you've got some music that is worth a lot of people hearing, then here's an opportunity to reach out to us, right? Uh, and you can send something to us at a&r at itr at gmail.com, which is the Indie Tunes A&R email page, and your emails will land there. We're looking for some EPKs. We're looking for some. If you got 3 decent tracks you'd like to send us by MP3, they can usually fit on an email quite easily. And then Sean and myself and Brent will be giving them a listen, and we'll talk back and forth about it. I mean, even if you don't want to, if you really don't want to send us, we really want you to put the extra work into it. We really want you to send us the tracks, but if you only want to send us links, that's fine too. As long as you give us a Spotify link, it'll work. Um, and we'll take a look at your music and we'll say, hey, I think we can help you. I think you offer something to where we're going with this, because we're moving beyond, I think, the realms of a record label. As you would say, Sean,
In the what?
we're way into the weeds now.
Well, we are in the weeds, and look, and I want to point something out because Carl and I did not rehearse this, but he brings up something very good. Artists don't think they need outside help, but if they are smart, they will seek outside help and focus on their art. He spelt there wrong, but that's fine. He's a smart fellow. They can they can learn as they go with assistance, but they can frustrate themselves out of a career if they go it alone. And that's important because Carl's done that. I've done that. A lot of people have done it where they feel that they don't want to bring somebody in because it's going to cost some money. And so they try to do it themselves. And what they end up doing is getting very frustrated. And sometimes they just quit, right?
Yeah. So I mean, the quick answer, Brandon, if you want to do this yourself and you really don't want any help, that's fine, because we're not here to stymie people who say, you know what, I'm not ready to work with a label yet. I've got my own ideas about how I want to do things, and I want to just, forge ahead on my own, be my own business manager, et cetera, et cetera. Just know that we don't tell our artists what to do. We work in consultation with them. This is it's a team sport that we're playing here. And thank God Sean and I both played hockey.
I
So
haven't played hockey in some years,
but we understand the concept of team sports, right?
no, absolutely. And again, I don't. I was telling this story to somebody the other day, right? Um, 2020, everything shut down. Everybody was depressed. We're all in this together. We got to help each other out. La 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 la. Everything opens up, and everybody does their own thing. Yes, this tip jar. Look at that.
You can help us by hitting that tip jar. You can scan that QR code with your phone. You can, find us on Indie Tunes Records. You can send us some money by PayPal if you want. This is not a plea for money. We're building a community here. This is not a plea for money. we're in fact looking at taking the record label to a point of not-for-profit status, and building something that not only is a legacy, but something that offers artists something very unique that's never really been offered before, at least not that I'm aware of.
Well, I mean, we talked about this too. Like people remember the days of, and Brent would certainly remember.
Listen. This is what's on Brent's mind tonight. I'm still looking for a 16 to 20-year-old male. Brent, you got to stop putting it out that way. No, he's actually looking for a 20, a 16 to 20-year-old male singer to lead sing his pop album. He's written a whole pop album of great tunes,
Yeah.
and he's looking for someone between the ages of 16 and 20, a male. You must have a great resume and know your way around the studio, because he doesn't want he wants someone who's got a little bit of experience.
So he's not looking for a unicorn or anything at 16 to 20 years old.
He's looking for the next Justin Bieber, I think.
There you go.
I think he's looking I think he's got some I think he has some really great quality songs written for the right singer.
He played me one, and I can't divulge, but I would agree with that.
Yeah, if you listen to them all, I listen to them all. We're back and forth. We have a Google Drive. Remember I said that? I share a Google Drive with a lot of artists. Well,
Yeah.
he's one I share Google Drive with, and we're back and forth collaborating all the time.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing about Brent, that when people come aboard the label, that they'll get to understand. He's he's not the guy that kind of sits there and idly twiddles his thumbs. If there's something on his mind, he'll bring it up, and but he's a great sounding board. And here's the other thing, and I say this all the time: he's a guy that's done it. He's not a guy that's gone on YouTube and took a couple crash courses and things, right? He knows his stuff, and he will help you.
Yeah, I mean, here's a great comment. I like this one by Carl. When I was young and met with CBS Records, I had a tape in my pocket ready to hand over. I was asked, "You are certain this is the best you can offer at this time? Because you may only get this chance once." The tape stayed in my pocket. Be certain.
Yep, it's a great point.
I mean, it's a great point. And here's the thing is that what we're offering artists is a little bit different. And we sometimes know that when someone comes on board on the label, especially if they're still figuring out their sound, right? And I had this conversation with Brian Vollmer. He's actually going to be on the show next month. He's going to be with me on November the 1st. And he's going to be back down in Florida. So now he's got some time on his hands. So we're going to bring him back on the show for some regular content. And we're going to pick up where we left on the Helix story. But those first two albums by that band, here's an example. So different. Each song is so different, and each song could have taken the band into a different musical direction depending on what their management decided.
Yeah, I mean that's history is littered with that. I mean, the first two Van Halen albums were actually maybe the first four Van Halen albums were lights out, because they were all written well ahead of time, and they just picked the songs that were going on the album, and then they got the Diver Down, and some people love that album, and some people not so much, but they didn't have as much written at that point, right? And you know they were, I guess, a little bit more solidified in their sound. But it is interesting that can happen, where you can meander all over the place to try to figure out who and what you are.
Well, and the thing is that depending on who ended up managing the band could have taken them in a completely different direction. I mean, they had some songs on there that were very progressive rock.
Yeah.
And I'm talking as intricate as Rush.
So
And when you look at that and you listen to it, you go, man, they could have been a prog rock band had a different management decided, hey, you guys, these are the songs that we think are going to resonate with people. But you never know. I mean, you talk to Geddy Lee, and he said I could count the women that came to our shows.
On two fingers. No, I'm just kidding. No, and I
My
mean,
video's flashing.
yeah, and I always joke around with there's a friend of mine. Actually, I do with Warren too. It's like Warren Robert. You're getting very, very good to impress dudes, and if you're fine with that, and all joking aside, people are proud of what they do, right? And I mean,
Yep.
everybody kind of has their thing. I had a thread on today. The bass player Johnny Martin from LA Guns had a funny line, and it was basically, fashion is more important than talent. And I mean, he's a great player. Don't get me
I
wrong,
saw that on your post.
right? And of course, everybody, oh well, the people that are the most unfashionable and think they have the most talent were vehemently opposed to Johnny's line. But this is a guy who plays with a band who's got some killer players in it. So yeah, he said that, but it wasn't like, okay, he just plays a root note for everything. The guy can play. There's no question he can play, right?
Oh man, I'm telling you, I love having these conversations with you because I never know where they're gonna go.
Well, and the beautiful thing about the Barstools platform is you get a little bit of everything. We've been very, very blessed. For the most part, we've been able to keep it positive. We get the odd zinger in there where you go, oh, I can't believe that somebody did that. But it's, for the most part, you get some, a little bit of everything, right? You'll get everything from somebody sharing a video to show posts to, you know, guys like Brent jumping on and offering, opinions and insight. And
Right.
it's
Now
pretty
your
cool.
show is pretty much formatted around one-to-one interviews, right?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I've done everything from product reviews to, my show is formatted around what the group members want to see. So if somebody says, I want to see you wrestle a polar bear, well, then I'll try to wrestle a polar bear. Um, it's
That's
very
fun.
much driven by the people that support it. And without a doubt, almost every interview that has been on there, or everything that's been on there, has been a suggestion by somebody.
Right. Well, maybe you and I need to figure out an infomercial that you could play on one of your shows, um, or play occasionally one of your shows talking about the record label.
Well, no question.
Because the cool thing about that is that, we definitely want to use the resources that we have at hand to maximize those resources. That's that whole working smarter thing you and I talked about.
Well, and hard work, hard work. Well, you can be the hardest working guy that carries buckets of water to and from somebody. Does that get you what you want? I don't know. Maybe it does. But working smart, if you're going to carry the bucket of water, over gravel versus a paved road, that's working hard versus working smart, right? And I've just always been a big believer in, find somebody that's done something successfully and ask them how they've done it, because I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I don't need to have something branded as Sean. Some people feel they do. I get it. Um,
So I think there's a huge opportunity. Like, these thoughts always come to mind, and maybe it helps other people when they think about how they're networking and partnering with other people. Because everything that you do as an artist, if you're looking at trying to be successful, shouldn't it be? I mean, you listen to successful guys like Michael Brandvold, and he says networking, then more networking,
yes, but
and
isn't
and more
isn't
networking.
isn't it funny? I'll say that to my group here in Halifax, and they'll be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Michael Brandvold says, I get it. People, there's currency with people that they think are more well-to-do, or more whatever. Um,
No, I think it's this. You guys are singing in the same choir because you told me about that before I met Michael Brandvold. You and I had that conversation before we even had Michael on the show.
well, so here's a good. No, Carl. God love Carl. He's getting a lot of airtime here tonight. That's Carl with a K, ladies and gentlemen. Both of these have great faces for radio. Coming from Carl, that means absolutely nothing. But anyway, um, I think we were 2 weeks into Barstools, and this is going back 3 years. So this is May of 2020. And
Sure.
Carl had a friend who passed away from COVID, and we started talking, and we did uh, um, a piece on him, because they were going to do like a memorial. And the next thing you know, Carl starts referring me guys that he's representing or doing shows with, and I've been able to meet some really cool guys through him that I never knew before. Eric Malosh
Right.
from a band called April out of Hamilton is one of them. He introduced me to Daryl Millar from Killer to War. So I mean, my point is that
Okay. So
networking.
so okay. 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Okay.
3 of Carl Anderson right here is what we're talking about.
3 degrees of Carl Anderson.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But think about this. Okay. So before I met you, before I met Brent Dorner, before I met Brian Vollmer and Helix came on my label. Okay.
yeah.
Before all that. Okay. There's a guy named JB Stryker. Now, that's not his real name. His real name is Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this project called the Living Room Rock Stars. They wrote some pretty cool tunes
Mm-hmm.
and recorded them at Jukasa Studios here in Ontario on the Res. And man, well produced, really great, well produced album. And their music's getting a lot of airplay.
Mm-hmm.
And they've they've got a good audience in New Zealand and Australia, believe it or not. Banks has been playing their stuff, and of course, Galaxy Radio's picked it up, and they play it. They're trying to get a hold of Jerry. He's a trucker up in the tundra, and he has like no cell reception, right? So he's gone for months at a time driving these big rig trucks on the tundra, and he doesn't have time. He's nowhere anybody can get a hold of him.
But isn't that funny? So you mentioned that. So as
But
Canadians
but
growing
Jerry
up,
but Jerry, but Jerry introduced me to everybody. So Jerry sent Brian to me. He followed me for a long time on the internet, Facebook, and all that stuff. He goes, "Oh, this guy is the real deal." So he gets a hold of Brent Dorner. Brent Dorner gets a hold of me, and then Brent Dorner sends Brian Vollmer my direction.
yeah.
So
That,
that's 3. So is it 3 degrees of Jerry Baker?
well, there you go, Jerry Stryker. Get it right, JB Stryker.
His
Um,
name, he goes by JB Stryker, but his real name's Jerry.
so again, we talked about this before. So networking really it's simple, right? Because you do it all the time. You talk to somebody you've never met before, or that's networking. Where it gets weird for people is when you figure you got to ask for something. And again, you know, I've never had a problem doing that, but some people do. But I've offered help to help people. One of the things that I always tell people if they want help is give me a list of people that you're looking to get a hold of. And if I know any of them, I'll make the warm handoff for you. And I do that all the time. It's not because I'm, you know, so amazing at it. It's just people have done it for me, and I know how effective it can be.
Right.
So ask, because people will help if they believe in what you're doing. People will help.
Yeah, so something that we're working on right now is expanding what we're doing on our website. So I want to talk a little bit about our website. And Brent always gives me crap because he said I don't talk about what artists are doing and what people are up to. And we've had a couple of really good things. This particular month, Sarah Smith just made it back for her European tour. She's been over there. She played 25 dates in 29 days.
So so that's awesome. And here's something. As Canadians, when we're young, we're always brought up to do what? Make it in the United States, right?
Yep.
That's the promised land.
Yep.
And when you first told me, blah blah blah, I was getting airplane in New Zealand or Australia, I'm going, ugh. Then I went to Ireland, and it's like if you could just tour over there and do nothing but tour over there, you would make really good money if that's what you wanted to do.
That's right.
You would meet some very, very, very cool people, and you'd have experiences that would be out of this world. So when you told me, I remember you sent me a thing a couple back. They're liking Michelle in Australia, and I'm going, yeah, I get it now. I get it now.
3 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right?
Carl says he was subbing for Robin, Sarah Smith's drummer.
Well,
No shit.
there
No
you go.
shit. Really?
Yeah.
When did you where did you play with her? Carl, where did you play? I don't get out to all Sarah's shows, but I follow what she's up to. In fact, I sent her a message tonight. It was really funny. I just thought of her out of the blue, and I just send her a message once in a while. I don't bother her a lot because she's so busy and she has so many people demanding her time that I don't want to be just one more person demanding her time. So whenever she has time for me, then I just put it out there and say, hey, buddy, you need to come by for a visit, or you need to come on the show for an interview.
So here's my 2 cents on that.
So Carl says,
He was filling. He was the drummer that was here. He picked up the drummer's gigs while the drummer was away.
you he did Robin's gigs, right?
No,
Well,
well
they're
they
on
were
tour
on
for the
tour.
last 29 days.
I picked up.
We picked up Robin's gigs.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. I thought he was subbing. I thought he was subbing for Sarah.
no, and you know what? And here's another. Carl sent me a note because they were, and this is actually really funny. You want to talk about the six figures? And Carl, he can back me up if I'm wrong, but he sent me a note about a month ago, and he was like, I've got a drummer. She's going over to do a tour in Europe. Do you know anybody that could give her a deal on sticks because what she's getting is not working out? So I contacted a guy that I'm dealing with who um, has a company they're dealing with, and I won't name the company, but it rhymes with Los Cabos anyway. And they didn't really do anything. So, and I'm currently following up. So, Carl, I apologize that the ball wasn't dropped on my end. I'm still following up on that. Um, but we're talking about the same person. And you've never met Carl, yet here we are. And Ontario's a pretty big friggin' place, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I got to share this with you here right now.
yeah,
Okay. So we've got a single out that's doing really, really good on YouTube.
yeah.
There's a video out there, and it's by an artist called Michelle Ryder. Hurt's Gonna Come. And it's on our website. So what I want to do is just show you this really, really, really quick. And hopefully I can make this big enough. So this opens up to another site, another piece on the website to where Michelle's music resides, and you'll see it there. You can go on our website and you can stream all of our artists' music for free in high res content. That's right. You can stream it for free. And if you decide that you like it well enough, for less than a cup of coffee, you can download any of those tracks and pay the artist what they deserve. If you believe that they deserve something for that track, download it and pay them $1. I mean, it's $1 a track.
So, and isn't that interesting? Because a topic came up today. There's a gentleman that I'm going to introduce you to by the name of George Wolf. So George is a local country artist here, and George is still doing it the old-fashioned way, man. He's printing CDs and selling them at the gigs, and he said
And
to
that
me
and
today,
that's another tangible is a great idea when you're at gigs for sure.
it is. But what George was basically saying is people are conditioned to get everything for free now, and I talked to a bunch of people about this. You know, there's people here that will they represent people and they'll want to post stuff on Barstools and Band Talk for free, but then they'll go around and post to all the other free sites. But then they get paid for it. And when you ask them, hey, well, chuck me something, they don't want to. They think that's crazy, but they're getting paid. And unfortunately, that's the mindset that we're in right now. I think we can change it because, nobody should work for free, really. I mean, think about it. You're getting something for free. How much value are you placing on it?
It is one of those things, the good, bad, and the ugly of the music business. So, I get approached by someone wanting to do compilations, but the compilation is going to be used to fund charity, right?
Yep.
And the artist isn't going to make anything off the track because it's going to be used for charity. But then when you start looking at the breakdown of it, you go, I don't know. There's some things about it that I don't like. And typically when somebody decides to put together a compilation, there are conflicts of interest with that.
Oh, yeah, no question. There always is. I mean, my experience has been And and again, here we go back to Carl, but Carl was in a band years ago here in Halifax that was part of this. They called it the Q104 Ultimate Deal. Sorry, the Q104 Homegrown. So it was a bunch of bands that were finalists, and they all got to go to this recording studio in Halifax and do two songs that went on this record. They played this huge show at the Halifax Citadel Hill. I mean, they probably played to 30,000-40,000 people. Um, but unfortunately, a lot of that stuff, the winner is predetermined, right? Before you even go in the studio, they know who's going to win.
Well, and what worries me about these compilations is there's always a curator,
No question.
right? And the curator always has a vested interest, which means that probably the curator is associated with or directly associated with 4 to 5 of the artists that are on the compilation. And they're going to put the biggest push because they're going to be getting money from the recordings and they're going to use it for advertising. But the biggest push may end up going on the artist in question rather than giving everybody the same push and letting the public decide.
Sure, and every now and again you do get that jewel in the rough that kind of goes over the wall and messes up the formula.
And that's
Um,
but the thing is that here's the thing. Create a level playing field for people. Okay? So our website has no algorithms on it.
right.
Okay? So when we go to a full-blown streaming and download service off of our website, there are not going to be any algorithms driving what you decide to listen to,
Uh-huh.
right? We're not going to be creating curated playlists. We're making the website interactive so you can go around and explore and find artists. Now, they're going to be listed by a primary and secondary genre. So if you're listening to music that crosses genres, you'll actually find those artists by searching by genre. Okay. And so whenever I put an artist music, usually the third genre that I pick in almost every case is singer songwriter. The primary genre ends up being whatever the artist, and we come to terms and say this is the primary genre,
Right.
right? Some people go, you know what? We're going to leave that up to you to decide what the primary genre is. I'm like, what? You know, um, well, because you understand the digital world better than we do. That's why we came to you in the first place.
Fair enough. I want to give a shout out to Peter James, my buddy Peter, who I've played in bands with before. An amazing bass player. He gave me a shout out. And I'd like to say, pray for Peter. His son made a major Bantam hockey team down here. He's going to need a lot of money this winter. But Peter's a guy.
I smell a fundraiser coming up.
Well, he's good. He's good at that stuff. But Peter's he's legendary status here in these parts as a
Now,
bass
where
player. So
is Peter in the comment section? Am I missing
he
something?
was. He said, "Hey, Shawnee, my man." It's
Oh,
way
that's
down
all he
there.
said.
Yep.
Where
It's
did he
just
say that?
it's
I
just
missed it.
it's just below one of Carl's 1,500. No, I'm just kidding. No, and you know what? I joke with Carl, but Carl is a guy. Like again,
Oh,
I've known
there's
him a
Shawnee,
long
my
time.
man.
Carl's been doing this stuff for a long time, right? So I joke with him, but he knows what it's like. He knows what it's like to deal with somebody that has some talent that doesn't want to listen. He knows what it's like to deal with somebody that has talent that does listen. So I joke with him, but he knows his stuff. Um, and so his comments are all good, except the one about radio and the last one. But anyway,
So our artistic director, him and I had a little bit of a conversation, a lead-in conversation about that, and I'm actually supposed to be visiting him this weekend.
oh nice.
So I'm going to be going up to Kitchener to visit Brent, and we're going to talk music and a bunch of other stuff, and probably smoke some weed and drink some beer.
Well, there you go.
um,
I
but
I and I may be making my way up those parts very soon, so stay tuned.
oh, there we go,
Yeah,
there we go, brother. There
yeah.
we go. That'd be cool. So yeah, so we're gonna have a conversation about music and stuff like that. He's got a bunch of boxes of CDs of some of his first albums,
Oh, nice.
and he's like, "What should we do with these? What should we do with them?" And I said, "Let's try and figure out a way to sell them."
Well, you could do that on the website.
That's right. So we can put them up there for sale, and you could get yourself a piece of memorabilia. And the cool thing about it is that if we now we got to figure out a third party on this piece, because Brent got tired of going to the post office to ship CDs.
Yeah,
So we need to find a fulfillment place, and then we'll just give them the boxes of CDs, and they can fulfill the customer's orders.
great idea. And I will be happy to do my very best. What is it, Billy selling the Sham Wow, and give Brent a hand moving those CDs, because like that's cool. They need to be in people's hands.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is that because we've got them right now, Dorner's got them at his place. Um, we could get them signed.
Well, you know what would be really cool. Anyway, we won't divulge here, but I have a couple of ideas that would be very, very cool that I think would be neat. So yeah, keep me up to date on that, because I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, so I mean, lots of cool things coming up in the next while. Stay tuned for more of the indie show with Sean and I. We're probably going to continue along this trek. Now, I think Michael Brandvold's due on the show.
And Mike, oh my, I don't know if you've been following, but he moved and he found these boxes, and he's been opening these boxes, and
I
he's
know, I
finding
seen it.
old
He,
stuff where he started with Kiss, and it's cool, cool.
he's been setting up his room. Now he's got his room all set up now. So I think he said once he gets everything sort of unpacked and kind of figure out what he's doing with all this memorabilia,
Yeah.
this Kiss memorabilia is a lot of it. Holy shit. Interviews with Peter Criss and stuff that goes way, way back. He's got Vinnie Vincent um, demo tracks and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you might actually get to hear how slow the guitar was actually played, as opposed to what made it on the album. But
It's it's crazy, man. I mean, the stuff that he's got. Anyway, we're gonna get Michael on the show. We'll be talking some more about digital marketing. And we're taking notes all the time from this guy.
absolutely.
Well, we'll formulate our own ideas as well. I mean, it's great to have soundboards. Michael loves interacting with us, and we love having him on the show. So I guess I'll have to reach out and say, "Hey, Mike, let's set something up for November."
Oh yeah, he's game. Um, if I could get a little plug too, I was able to have two really cool interviews posted this week. One was with Mike DeRosier, the not the original, but the drummer from Heart that played on Barracuda, all the hits before they became the pop band in the
Right.
'80s. And what a nice guy. I did my consistent. I feel like I owe you some royalties for the chops that I stole, but super super nice guy. Check that one out. And then there's a Facebook group dedicated to Hal Blaine. Hal Blaine was part of the Wrecking Crew. He played in over 4,000 tunes. Played on "Be My Baby" by the Ronettes. He played on "California Dreaming." He played with Elvis Presley. I talked with the woman who actually takes care of that, and she has some of the best stories. And that's Ingrid Fashing is her name, and some of the best stories. I tell you, future
Okay.
guest for this.
So are we going to get her on here?
She told me she thought I did such a good job of being respectful that she would join me anytime.
Oh, I'd love to have her on the show. And while we're at that, there's somebody else we've been trying to get on here.
Dorothea Taylor, I know.
That's right, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I want to talk to the drummer of all drummers. I mean, she's the stuff, dude.
Oh yeah. No, I will. I have a little bit of. She's taken on some students, so she's been busy with that.
Right?
And she's cut back some of her media, but I will follow up with her again for sure.
I'd love to have her on an episode because it'd be just so much fun to have an interaction with her because she seems like a lovely person.
Well, she is, and what's so funny is when I sent her the note, and she responded directly. She's like, "Yeah, no problem." Then I said, "Are we good for this date?" And she goes, "Okay, I'll be set up on my drum kit. Have your sticks." And she thought I was a student. And in hindsight, maybe I should have been that day. But
Yeah.
anyway, she has I think 5 or 6 students, and she teaches on Zoom. And
Dorothea Taylor, the fastest paradiddler in the world.
that sounds so wrong
I
when you
know it
say it,
sounds
but
wrong, but paradiddles. I mean, I I knew what they were,
yeah.
but the first time that I saw her, and it was really weird. I love watching drum videos,
Mhm.
right? And I love listening to different drum sounds and how different drummers tune their drums. Because there's a different tuning that all drummers use. They hear something that adds to what they're playing. It's a layer. It's, their tuning is about that layer, figuring out that layer where their drums stand out.
Well, and there was a post that was on our page about uh, how to tune drums, and basically for me, somebody had asked me how I tune my drums, and I just said I tune them for the sound man, because if the sound man's happy, I'm gonna sound good. And then it blew up into this, the heck with the sound man.
I
And
know.
anyway, however, my point is I will still tune for the sound man, but that's, again, it's a personal thing, like a
But
guitar, like
in
a
the
bass.
studio, are you going to tune them differently in the studio?
I don't tune the drums in the studio, because typically what I do is I don't use my own kit. I use there's the two studios that I use have kits, and they're already tuned when I go in, and they're set for um, how the person, I guess, capturing the performance likes it. And then if I'm sending it to a client, for example, I just send the raw track, and they can do whatever the heck they want with it from there. So
Yeah, I have to tell you. I mean, we worked for a long time getting the sound on the drums the way that Mike liked them,
yeah,
and you know, and every drummer hears something, and then I hear it and I go, okay, now I got to figure out how we put this in the live mix, right?
yep.
Because our live mixes are not dubbed or overdubbed; they're just the live mix as it goes in,
But
and we try to get it bang nuts on without having to tweak anything. And usually we can almost on every track go straight to mastering.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, I get a kick out of when I had to leave a couple of drum forms because they just get so negative. But yeah, I get these people that are on there. This is the way it's supposed to be, and if it's not like this, you're stupid and blah, blah. And I don't subscribe to that. That's my personal thing. A lot of people would say, well, you're very unlearned or whatever.
Right.
I've just found through years and years and years of having to do sound checks in places where people are eating and they don't want to hear a drum sound check,
Right.
make the sound man's life easy. And when I go in the studio, it's the same thing. I don't want to spend 2 hours getting a snare sound. If the sound
Right.
man likes what he likes, great. That works for me. I'm not saying that's the proper way. Carl's writing fiction, by the way. Sorry, guys, my date showed up. Got a dash. Sure.
we gotta roll anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, this conversation could go on. There's so many great topics that we can discuss. Next week we're going to talk more about the good, bad, and the ugly of the music business. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we're trying to accomplish here at Indie Tunes Records, which is a record label that is probably going to move beyond a record label. It's going to become something different. We know that it will always be a platform owned by independent artists, run for independent artists by independent artists. So we really want to keep the whole thing very grassroots. Um, and so come join us every week, every Wednesday. We're here, me and Sean, most Wednesdays as it is now. He's been a really great sport, and I want to thank him for really, stepping up and being sort of the steady on here. But you will get a break November the 1st. So
What's November the 1st?
that's that's a Wednesday.
Okay. Oh, I understand. Who's on?
Yes, Brian Vollmer. So you don't have to.
Oh, I'm
So
being
you don't.
punted for Brian. I get it.
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
you can come on the show with us if you want. If you've got some questions, I mean, you're always welcome. You know that,
You
right?
know what? I would sit there and just listen for sure. And I do want to say before we go here,
Yeah.
um, I am going to let you guys know what's going on if I'm going up there. If I'm up there, Brent Dorner, you and I got a jam, man. I want to get something recorded.
That would be fun. That would be
Yeah,
fun
it
for
would be.
sure. All right, listen, man. From me, this is that's Sean over there.
That's
Uh,
Ken
that's our
over
that's our
there.
that's our tip jar there, and you can scan that QR code. You can actually go to Indie Tunes Records on Facebook on our page. You can donate to PayPal there. You can even say what it's all about, or even better yet, you can go to our website and buy our artist music directly off our website. Download it to your heart's consent. Stream it as much as you want, but you can stream everything for free before you buy it. All right. So, Sean, and remember, everybody, I'm Kenny, and he's not, and you are not. Have a good night, everybody.